Thank you, Michael, and for a generous introduction, and then also put me on the spot to talk about our leaders. But I think it's very topical, it's timely, and we have to deal with this in a way that has concerned citizens. Like you said, I followed ECOWAS. I worked there at one point, and since my days as a journalist, I went as a war correspondent attached, embedded in ECOWAS ceasefire monitoring group in ECOMOG in Liberia and Sierra Leone. And I also followed the development of our regional organization, which, to be fair, has been the one that had been blazing the trail in the continent, and then even showing an example that other regions can follow through its diplomatic, preventive diplomacy, and then conflict management and control. That has been the very strong area of ECOWAS. And how did it come about? Remember that this organization was set up in 1975 purely to, facilitate regional integration using economic indices, fast-track economic growth and development. But no sooner had it taken off in 1975 than crisis and conflict started brewing. And so peace and security agenda was then added to what ECOWAS had to do. And since then, there hasn't been a let-up. It has been one crisis after another, beginning with Liberia, like I said, in that on the eve of Christmas in 1989, and then followed by Sierra Leone, 1991, and so on and so forth, Guinea, and to the point that, like I said, of all the 8 regional economic communities, RECs, that Africa has, ECOWAS has been the one showing the light until we got to this stage where, judging by its own standard, because that is what I want us to contextualize, that ECOWAS is being judged by its own standards, by the achievements it has knocked up in the past, that is no longer living out of those ideals. And that is why people are worried. What has happened? And if you look at it, yes, there is the geopolitical strategic shift. The war is no longer what it used to be, with threats of terrorism and then, economic underperformance by repression, what is it called, recession in so many countries. And then suddenly we also have now added to it is the Trumpism, the Trump emergence that has really put international law under its head. But that is not the issue. Let us begin from home. So it began with the fact that when ECOWAS now noticed that it was beginning to deal with peace and security issues that actually prevented it from tackling the economic issue for which it was set up, it came up, the leaders came up with, they rose up to it, coming up with some protocols and instruments to deal with that. And they were, in the initial stage, they were very successful. They were able, for instance, to using, there is a 1999 protocol mechanism for, conflict prevention and then dealing with crisis. Then followed by the 2001 protocol on good democracy and good governance, which has a provision of zero tolerance for unconstitutional change of government. We will come to that to there. And then in 2010, 28, they came up with the conflict prevention framework, 2008. And then in 2010, ECOWAS leaders also in their own wisdom and in Monrovia came up with a declaration given very great assent to observance and convergence of constitutionality. That is, that you have to, even military, and not because they are dealing with military issues, will subject themselves to civilian instruments, and so that there will be no room for dictatorship. We have seen some of it. In fact, as late as 2016, 2017, ECOWAS had to come back to deal with the problem in the Gambia, where Yahya Jammeh, after 22 years of dictatorship, was decided to stay on. He conducted an election in December 2016, came out and almost accepted defeat, but went back on his words to say he was no longer going to accept. But ECOWAS said no, they cannot have it. After back and forth with of negotiation and dialogue, Nigeria had to use the big stick, deployed some air assets, some military planes were deployed, and the Senegal, which is neighboring the Gambia, sent troops, and then that was what Yahya Jammeh saw, and then agreed, and he was now sent on exile in Equatorial Guinea, where he's there. I think he's farming or something. So, but what has happened? This is just part of it. It has also been found that the leaders, political leaders, have now found a way of contravening or violating these protocols that I have mentioned, this declaration. How? They hold elections that are not, you can't call transparent or credible. They manipulate the system. They will tell you they are holding elections regularly. Yes, that is what democratic principles say. But elections do not equate to democracy or good governance. So they do that, trust the politicians, and then they began to change constitutions. They hold referendum, and then use the result to hold elections for tenure elongation. Hence, we now had what we call third-term syndrome, that after, usually, their constitution will provide for 2 terms. But to go around it, they now change the constitution through referendum and then hold elections without, obeying what the ECOWAS constitution says, or the protocols that I have mentioned. For instance, the 2001 protocol on supplementary protocol on democracy and good governance. It says that you cannot change or have major change to the constitution or electoral law 6 months before a major election. Many countries have done it, and they have gotten away with it. Togo is one, and then you can name. Macky Sall wanted to do it in Senegal before the civil society rose, and then made sure that it didn't happen. The other one is this idea of flattening opposition. They load opposition to make sure that some of them are actually gravitating towards one-party state. By making sure either they jail when they notice that you are springing up to give them any contest during election, they trump up charges. For instance, in Benin, there is a woman there that was jailed since 2021 for 20 years. What was her offense? She contested. And not that only that they said she lost, but she was tried for terrorism and has been in prison since then. Where else can you talk about? In Sierra Leone, there was an election that was held, is it 2023? That one, I was also there to see that they had started, they declared result when the regions had not even sent in their tallies. And what it created is also instability, to the point that the former president, Kuruma, is now exiled in Nigeria. So these are part of the problem. You know, of course, of recent was Benin, where Talon, who was the president when he came in, as part of this, what these leaders are doing, made sure that the opposition was frozen, and then brought up some rules. They will change the constitution. They will, for instance, in his own case, he now said that a tenure of the president will now be 7 years instead of 5 years, and he created what they call like a Senate, another branch of the legislature that will be dominated by former heads of state, and where the head, the president of that institution, will always have a very enormous power, like the president of the republic. And who is and he, because he's not running in the election in April, he has positioned the incumbent finance minister to take over. So this is all you find. Not to talk of Guinea-Bissau that you mentioned, where somebody has now, Mbalo, actually, when he called an election, and then on the eve, when the Electoral Commission was to announce the results, he organized a coup and handed power to his loyalists in the army, who are now running the game. He is now behind the scene, controlling them. The idea is that he will run again. The military has said they will now organize an election in December of this year. And most likely that Mbalo will run, which means that he will run, and what he didn't perfect through election the other time, he will do it now very well, and then come back to power. And so that is what we have had. Now, this has given rise to military, resurgence of military coups. We have had several of them, to the point now that about how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ECOWAS member states are now governed by dictators. And Guinea just escaped that. But what did he do to come there? Dumbuya. He changed the constitution still, and then changed his organized an election and changed his military camouflage, and with Guinea Bupu. He's now president. So this is what they are doing, and to the point that ECOWAS has now, instead of 15 countries that they were, 3 have left: Mali, Burkina Faso, and then Niger. They have left to form what they call the Alliance of Sahel States. So this is where we are. Let me stop here, and so that to give chance to for context. That's what I have provided. Thank you very much, Emmanuel, and then listeners.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for this enlightenment teaching on respect, particularly with the Guinea-Bissau. So it's time for us to engage our speaker, with respect to this topical or these very interesting issues. Sir, there was something you said, and that's partly what this webinar was set up to address. Looking at the case study, Guinea-Bissau, the immediate past president that was allegedly ousted by the military, is there no step the ECOWAS, the remaining, the 12 ECOWAS states, through the ECOWAS Commission or through the ECOWAS Parliament or the Committee of Heads of States, is there no steps that can be taken to stop him from contesting in the December election, given that the likes of the former president of Nigeria, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, came on live television to tell the world what actually transpired in Guinea-Bissau, and the fact that the immediate past president is complicit, with respect to this, somebody of that magnitude, stating the fact clearly, as it were. So is it that ECOWAS cannot take a firm action, just like Nigeria did in the aborted coup that took place in Benin? Nigeria even went in with its forces and tried and eventually stopped it. Is it that we cannot take that kind of step in order to stop these emerging issues?
Yeah, thank you, Emmanuel. Michael,
sir. Yes, sir.
Michael, I keep calling you Emmanuel. Of course, yes. And I'm glad that you have raised it, because all this while, and everybody appear to be in denial. They are not accepting that what happened in Guinea-Bissau is not a normal coup. This man concocted this. He was the architect of this one. Because those who are in the government that was set up, I don't know how to pronounce his name, the general, who is the head of the transition, president of the transition now, used to be in charge of his presidential guard. And then the prime minister now was a prime minister and finance minister. Used to be his campaign director. So that tells you that, everything is in the military leadership, the Mbalo signature is written all over it. And so, in other words, he cannot deny that he's not behind. Even if he denies, what about other people, particularly when you mentioned it, that former Nigerian president who was there, like we were, and saw what happened, telling the world that this is not a coup, that a normal coup, that this man just organized this because he noticed, he was afraid that he was losing the election. Okay, so to scatter the whole thing, if you can't have it, then nobody will have it. First of all, they jailed the opposition leader. To begin with, let's go back to how the prelude, what happened before that election. Mbalo had dissolved parliament twice. Okay, and in the past too, this is actually either the third or the fourth coup that he is organizing, and then telling you that it is by opposition. But this one has given, he has given himself out. The world can see. It's not only former President Jonathan. The Prime Minister of Senegal, Sonko, also, he first ran to, Mbalo first ran to Senegal. In fact, Senegal came to evacuate him to Dakar because of the tension. But when he got there, the president was behind it. I will tell you, I will come to about how the division that is now within ECOWAS that is undoing the organization. The president, Diomaye Faye, organized for Mbalo to be taken to Senegal. Okay? But when he got there, the Prime Minister, Sonko, said no, that this is not a coup, that this is something that this man organized. But nobody, the ECOWAS cannot allow it. Before you knew it, Mbalo ran away from there. He now went to, I think, whether Morocco and so on. Actually, nobody is been hiding, but from where he is, he's, controlling what is happening in Bissau. So this was what happened. That there is no way nobody, unless the ECOWAS, that is part of the hypocrisy. And the fact that the ECOWAS leaders, they are now working in cahoots. They are defending the, dictatorship, kind of camaraderie among the leaders. They are now encouraging themselves in this illegality. Because what Mbalo has done is not only, you cannot accept it. It's not indefensible. It's not defense. Nobody can defend it. It is also illegal. It's also a violation of ECOWAS protocol. But the problem, like Michael, is there anything happening?
No.
Okay.
I think somebody's mic is on. Please kindly.
Okay. All right. So let me go.
Your mic is on.
So Michael.
Yes, sir.
Part of the reason is that the leaders, because they are protecting themselves, they are no longer self-preservation and self-interest. They don't want to speak up about what any of them that is going wayward. Then two is that they are also divided. There are some who are saying, listen, let us come hard. There is the point, originally, some people were saying, if you went like you did in Guinea-Bissau, in the Gambia, or like you were suggesting in Benin, that there could be a very bloody confrontation. But like you said, the minimum that anybody can do is to prevent Mbalo from profiting from a coup that he organized. Because if you allow him to come back to why will people look at ECOWAS as a serious organization? But this is what the ECOWAS Commission and some of the leaders are now saying, including the president of the authorities, who happens to be a former military ruler, President Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone. And like I said, the last election that brought him to power was not, was anything but transparent. I told you that his predecessor, immediate predecessor, had to be taken out of Sierra Leone to Nigeria so that peace will reign. That's what he wanted. But he has been violating ECOWAS protocol. And like Mbalo has been doing. But some people, Mbalo, for instance, not Maada Bio, who happens to be the chair of the authority, and the president of Senegal, they are all now seems to be supporting Mbalo in what he's doing. That is why ECOWAS cannot get that consensus of taking a very simple but a proper decision, like you suggested. Rule him out that he will not participate and let others, even if they want to, ECOWAS has actually asked for a shorter transition program. This junta, these military rulers in the Guinea-Bissau, they are less concerned. They are not listening to ECOWAS. ECOWAS has asked for release of these political prisoners. They've only released the man they stopped, they banned from the most, the largest political party in Guinea-Bissau since independence. The party for African Party for Independence of Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, because these were formerly the same country before they split. They ruled out Pereira. Domingo, Mbalo barred him from participating in the election, and as well as the party. That was why Fernando da Costa ran as an independent candidate and, is claiming victory. And many people think that he won that election. And because Mbalo does not want him to win. He decided to organize the coup. So the least that the ECOWAS leaders could have done would be to rule, bar Mbalo from participating, and then insist. I can tell you that the European Parliament has actually decided that they are not, that the military must conclude that electoral process and release the result of the election. ECOWAS lacks the backbone. They lack the teeth to do that because they are all pandering to this collegiate defense of illegality. Okay, supporting themselves in criminality. They are not doing that. And they are not even thinking about what you have just suggested. That since this man, the idea is that he has nullified this election so that another one can be held in December. Where is the money? And what is the morality? Well, how can you defend it? They do not see the fact that this man can be, ruled out. Some are saying that what Mbalo is doing, that he has the support of some external forces, some countries in Europe, in Europe or wherever. But the main blame rests on the ECOWAS leaders and the ECOWAS Commission. Because in some cases, when Mbalo was dissolving parliament and then suspending constitution and then doing all manner of things, ECOWAS Commission is there to advise the authorities that this is the leaders. But ECOWAS Commission has been mute. They have been silent while all these violations are taking place. So they also say that they are complicit or they lack the political will to tell the leaders the truth. And their predecessors have done so. At least not one, not two, or not three occasions. I can give an instance. In 2009, when Mohamed Tanja of Niger wanted to dissolve parliament and then hold an election, ECOWAS said they will not accept the result of that election. And they never stood until Tanja was deposed by the military. And then in 2011, what's his name? Yahya Jammeh planned an election for presidential election. ECOWAS sent a fact-finding mission before the election. The report of that mission concluded that there is no level playing field for democratic election. So ECOWAS Commission refused to send observers to that election and refused. They did not recognize Yahya Jammeh, the result of that election. So it takes some character, the strong character, and then the personality of who are the people there at the ECOWAS Commission, combined with the fact that the political leaders are now breathing on them. But that is how you can handle it. You are not disrespecting anybody by pointing out the fact that what you are doing, Your Excellency, violates the ECOWAS protocol or ECOWAS instrument. But instead, what we find, what is very ironic is that when now, recently, what is it? The ECOWAS Commission came out to say that they welcome what the military rulers in Guinea-Bissau are doing. What are they welcoming? When you have asked them to shorten the transitional plan, they didn't. What are they doing? Now, some people, Mbalo's people have now gone to the military to say they should clear the way for Mbalo to come back and then participate in the next election. ECOWAS has not said anything about it. So it is just what we call comedy of errors, complicity, illegality, and then not respecting your own rules. I think that has become the bane of the present crop of ECOWAS leadership, both at the Commission and then in all the countries and regionally. And then the other thing, Michael, is that Nigeria has refused. I don't know what is happening, because that ECOWAS succeeds should be seen as a success for Nigeria. Nigeria did everything with, if you remember, Professor Adedeji, that worked with his colleague Edem Kujo of Togo to make sure that this organization was set up. But today, Nigeria maybe appear to be consumed and laser focus on politics and the next election, that the leaders are not even looking at how ECOWAS is unraveling, because ECOWAS has lost what it used to have. It has lost its mojo. It has lost is losing relevance, and this will actually rub off on Nigeria's standing in the international community, because Nigeria is considered a regional power. And how are you a regional power when the organization that you set up or you contributed, you were pivotal in setting up General Gowon, after the Civil War of 1970 that ended in 1971, he now thought that you could have concentric circle in international relations. First, you deal with your national issues, then go to your neighbors. In fact, after the Gowon carried out a visit of neighboring countries, and then because he noticed that neighboring countries did not come to aid Nigeria when they were fighting, okay, so he said, okay, now remember his policy, whether it was implemented or not is another thing, of the 3 R's. No victor, no vanquished, and then reconciliation and all that. But he did that policy of Africa first and concentric circle. You go around first with your neighbors and then the region. That was how ECOWAS was born, before you now go continental. And from continental, you now move on to the international level, because charity, they say, starts from home. But Nigeria, again, I must say many people think so, that it's not living up to it. It's not leading. It has to provide that leadership, both from nationally and then be able to now go to what is happening in ECOWAS, and then take the necessary measures to make sure that this organization, the baby, they call it Nigeria's baby, that this baby does not die from asphyxiation.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Jime. Thank you so much. So with this robust background, I want to call on our esteemed audience to now, it's time for us to participate. The floor is open. So if you have a contribution, you have a question, you have something to say with respect to the topic of today's webinar, you can please indicate. Please, let's make it short. We have a lot of scholars here. I can see a lot of international law scholars here. So please let me not be the one to appoint us to speak.
I think you also have your chat. This thing, they can also send your questions if.
Yes, already can send it. Okay, I think Dr. Tony Luka is Elumelu is raising his hand. Doc, are you?
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, I just applauded. That was the emoji that was sent. I applauded because beautiful rendition of what is happening in that region. You know, I do not have any doubt about his capacity and knowledge in terms of ECOWAS issue. But I also want to say that Though we know that ECOWAS is a partial severance of national sovereignty into a collective basket, but also know that there are areas where ECOWAS cannot actually pull its weight, and most of them are built around the political issues. But let us go to the nitty-gritty. The main, if you look at ECOWAS, it's for economic issues. But now we are focused on more on political issues. Direct to what he has presented, good. But I am saying that it is not all over. The solution has not been given. And he has to be a little bit soft on the commission, because what is the power of the commission? The power of the ECOWAS commission is not the same with that of the EU. So there's a limitation in terms of what they can. I know that some past presidents have acted swiftly, like De Souza, I'm sure you know, Chambers, but they also need to look at the major issues in terms of powers that is domiciled at the commission. But I think with this sensitization awareness, people are listening. And what he has suggested that Mbalo should not at least be given the chance to contest if is thinking of that. But the summit are coming on. And with this sensitization, I believe that something will be done, but not to say that it has been concluded that he will participate. So I rest my case, because I cannot tell anything. Like I said, he has the institutional memory, he has the knowledge, and I just want to add my voice to say, okay, fine, good, but it's not conclusive. It's inconclusive, if you want me to use our Nigerian language. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Luka. Thank you. Okay, more reaction, please.
Okay, Michael, while you're waiting for the more reaction, let me just acknowledge my brother, younger brother, Dr. Tony Luka Elumelu. He is, I think he is right on the spot, on sports, what he has said about what is happening in ECOWAS, the fact that perhaps there is a power play and all that. But I can tell him that that is the reason people come take positions, or you are in a position to make a difference. You cannot, you have to take a decision, no matter, either good or bad or popular or unpopular, so long as you are following the rule. Because the fear is, are you afraid of what? In that your timidity or being afraid, ECOWAS is collapsing. If you are afraid not to take a hard decision because it will cause a problem. By not taking a decision, you have already taken a decision. And the decision you have taken, they say silence means consent. How will ECOWAS, when they know the position of the community citizens and every other person, including European Union Parliament, they said that the minimum is for the leaders, the military rulers, to release the result of that election. ECOWAS has not done so. They bought the narrative presented to them by the Mbalo and the military leaders, that the results you can't find, that the military carted away all the computers or servers, or they have been destroyed. But that is not the truth. The fact, if we can do our own, ECOWAS should have been able to do its own independent verification to know that the samples of these results are available, Michael. So it's not true. You can't buy hook, line, and sinker what these people are telling you, because that is the script they want the world to swallow. That they made the commission, electoral commission people, but some of them, if you ask them, they were speaking out of fear.
Yes.
Okay? But ECOWAS should not allow that to happen. By the way, ECOWAS has a stabilization support mission in Guinea-Bissau military plus all the components of about 500 people in Guinea-Bissau. They can do their own independent. Do you know that the military had also asked this mission to leave, to pack and go? And ECOWAS didn't do anything. I think the impression is now that ECOWAS now went to go and beg them to say, no, let them stay. And they gave them a condition for this mission to stay, which is that they will be doing a joint patrol with Guinea-Bissau military forces. My brother, what I'm telling you is verifiable. You can go and find out what is happening with this, because I'm speaking from a position of knowledge. A serious organization cannot allow that. They ask you to go, the same thing that he did the last time, Mbalo. When he took power in 20 whatever, he asked the ECOWAS mission there, that has been there since 2012, to leave, only to later ask them to brought back. And when they were brought back, you know what? The terms of reference they are now using is not the type that ECOWAS had always used. The one they are using both in Guinea-Bissau and then the Gambia is the one that actually makes, what is it called? The mission there subservient, actually serving the president of the country, not protecting the institutions as it were. But they will only go and support whoever the president of the republic wants them to support. And the ECOWAS Commission, in fairness to them, had now asked that these terms of reference be changed. It was brought in during the period of the Ben Noir as a commissioner for political affairs, peace and security, Mr. Bianzen. You know, that was this period. And it is that, let's also put things in context. It is that kind of whatever that ECOWAS, the present management of the commission inherited. And they ought to be fast about it. They have now, by June or whatever, they'll be 4 years. Michael, if they started early, they do some SWOT analysis or, find out the weakness, they would have started working on it. I agree with Tony that ECOWAS was set up for, economic progress. But economic development and defense and peace and security, there is a nexus between the two of them. You cannot have one without the other. You can't have economic development when there is a political instability. And in political instability will not allow for there to be economic development. So he, in his area, he was a director of Free Movement Directorate. He did his best. If that is one of the things for which ECOWAS is commended and remembered today. ECOWAS was one of the first regional regions that came up with this visa-free system that allowed for community citizens to stay in their countries for 90 days without visa. You can also from there talk about establishment and residence, which is good. They still need to work on it because still there are some gray areas. So one is not saying that ECOWAS has not achieved, but we are saying that you don't need to drop the ball. Don't look at AU. Some of the protocols and instruments that AU is using today, they borrowed from ECOWAS. I can tell you that. The protocol on supplementary protocol on democracy and good governance is almost the same thing as what AU has as election, good governance, and democracy. It's almost word for word, which they borrowed. Remember when the AU came as a successor to the OAU? It was 2002. ECOWAS has been there. And they saw that ECOWAS was doing more and much better, more proactive. In fact, when ECOWAS decided not to run the election, to send observers to the election in 2011 in Gambia. AU sent. But what did we do? They didn't support ECOWAS. If they had supported ECOWAS, Yahya Jammeh would not have repeated, had they got to hold an election and refuse to accept the result in 2016. And by the way, there is the Commission for Human and People's Rights that is based in the Gambia. And Yahya Jammeh was committing atrocities upon atrocities. That commission never found it, fit to hold that man to order. It was ECOWAS that did that. That was why ECOWAS was riding in reputation and then relevance until the leaders dropped the ball. Tony will agree with me that what is happening is as a result of the violation of ECOWAS treaties and instruments by the political leaders. That is what has encouraged the military to start now coming in to take over power.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ejime. Thank you for that enlightenment. Please, we have Professor Enabuleli.
Thank you, Michael.
Prof, you have the floor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for that good rendition, and I'm grateful to you, Dr. Elumelu, for the insight also you have brought. This whole situation about coup and election, we know that it is very sensitive, and there's a lot that goes in. But I've had, as a center, we've had the privilege of engaging with nationals of Guinea-Bissau, and the question that they ask is, why is Guinea-Bissau different from the Republic of Benin, for instance? Why was there intervention in the Republic of Benin and Guinea-Bissau is being treated differently? And we also know, I know as a person, that the EU asked the military to release the result of that election, but the ECOWAS seem to have taken a different position. Would it be that ECOWAS is now afraid of taking a strong stance against coup plotters because of what happened with regards to Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali? Or is it just that what we see is that we have heads of state that do not actually believe in democracy, in the authority of heads of states and governments? Because certain decisions that you see, that's why I'm a bit worried over what we hear about the president of Senegal, because we know how Macky Sall tried to ensure that these guys never made it to even contest, but for the resilience of the people of Senegal, and we see what Talon, and to see that Talon seems to be doing one thing on another thing in Benin. You have Togo on its own side. You have Côte d'Ivoire. It seems to be this situation of civilians seeming not to believe in democracy. So is it because we have leaders that do not seem to believe in democracy? Because if you take a survey of the elections that have been conducted in ECOWAS in the last few years, whether you talk about Nigeria 2023 election, you talk about that of Sierra Leone that you have mentioned, you talk about the one that just happened in Guinea. Mbalo was somebody that we already knew was going to win anyway, because it was just a situation of transiting from one uniform to another, from uniform to civilian, whatever they call it. So it wasn't really an election that we expected was going to be free and fair. Even opposition leaders raised alarm before then we saw what happened in Guinea-Bissau, and it seems to be repeating itself. And from what we see, even the election that is going to happen in Benin later in the year is unlikely to be free and fair, if at all, because opposition leaders have been skilled out already. So what would you say is responsible for all of these things that we are seeing, and what do you think ECOWAS can do? Can do differently from what they are doing now?
That's a difficult. Thank you, Prof. And then one must commend you and the center for what you do. At times you do much of it pro bono. You are not asking for any reward, unlike when we live in a transactional world, people always asking what is in it for me. At times I've seen you take up issues or cases pro bono. Yes, it's a combination of all that you have said. One is the character of people you have at the commission. And that is why one will be pleading. One will like to see a different, a change from the leadership style that this outgoing management has exhibited. Because it appears a case of listening to the leaders too much, political leaders, or trying to please them. Once they tell you this, you run, you want to be a good man to, no, you are there. I would like, and I don't know, I want to be corrected if I'm wrong, that once you assume that position, you become a supranational, you are supranational citizen. You are no longer pandering to even your own country or any other country. You have become a citizen, a barometer for measuring what citizens can be, a regional citizen can be. And you have to be, one, free, fair in all you do. You want to be seen to be respecting the rules, that governs where you are. You have to be tough, fair, but not disrespectful. But we see a situation where some characters, some people are not ready to what do they call it? Shake the bottle. They want to maintain the status quo, but that is not the issue. They are not going to remove you. Once you tell them, you are not going to call them and abuse them. You just call them, say, Your Excellency. Or in fact, we haven't seen it in this administration of the commission. The president should, before something happens, do what you call to test the waters. You can go on. Nobody can stop you. Take your plane. You are going on mission. You see what this country is doing. Go there. Either you alone or with some of your commissioners, to go and talk to these people. If they now say no, if they refuse, you come out with a public statement. These leaders are afraid of public statements, I can tell you that. Once you see, and I have seen this management withdraw a statement that they had already issued. I think it was on Senegal or Togo, where there was a crisis. And they had issued a statement to say that the mission that is going there is a pre-election mission, quite all right. But it will also look into the crisis that is there. ECOWAS came back and they withdrew that statement and said no, that they are only going there for pre-election. When there is crisis in that country, so you are trying to play the ostrich. You are burying your head while your backside is in the open. So, one, it is the leadership at the commission, either that they are afraid or they lack the political will, power to challenge this, and that is to advise them. That's what it is. You will say, well, the leaders can accept or deny or refuse the advice, but offer the advice. And if they refuse, for you also to clear your own name, to show that you have done you put it in writing to say, Your Excellency, want this decision by campaign to continue with this election, which is in violation of the ECOWAS. You quote the relevant position, the relevant portions of the ECOWAS protocol or instrument. That will not kill anybody. So, but for whatever reason, the commission has refused to do that. Then the leaders, these are authoritarian and dictatorial leadership. That's what we have. We now have the crop of leaders we have in the ECOWAS now. most of them do not want to have anything to do with opposition, starting from Cote d'Ivoire. By the way, this issue of changing of constitution or whatever started with Cote d'Ivoire in 2016. ECOWAS helped President Alassane Ouattara to come to power. After the election of 2010, there was crisis. ECOWAS stood by him to say he won the election against Laurent Gbagbo. Then Gbagbo was taken to The Hague, and after 10 years, there was no trial. Then he came back. What has Alassane Ouattara done since then? He has consistently made sure that the opposition people do not stand a chance of challenging him. You can go and check. You will say, well, he's doing it within the law, outside the law. But the point was that he started this change of national constitution, followed by Alpha Conde of Guinea. In fact, Guinea had to do his own referendum and election during COVID. And 3 prominent government officials died, including the chairman of the Electoral Commission, after the election, because he was hell-bent on, conducting those elections. What happened? Eventually, he was toppled. Then, who again? You go to Senegal. We've talked about Senegal, about Macky Sall, how he tried to re-roll his own changes to make sure he stayed beyond. Even somebody who was against third term during Abdoulaye Wade. What he didn't take under Abdoulaye Wade, he wanted to do it during his time. We saw what happened. Now you go to Togo. Togo, for Yasimbe, took power in 2005 after the death of his father. Undemocratically. The military supported him. He ran a sham election. He claimed he won and had held so many elections where he's re-elected. What did he do in 2003? Was it 2004? When? Just recently, he decided to change the constitution before the election. He didn't meet the ECOWAS requirement. And what would the ECOWAS Commission lose by pointing out to him that, sir, this is not in line with the ECOWAS Commission, the protocol or instrument? He changed the constitution. Now has Benin is now almost Togo is now a parliamentary system they are running. The president of the republic is different now from what you call president of the Council of Ministers, a position he has now occupied, which has more powers than the president of the republic. That is what he has done. Then I have told you what Mbalo has done. Mbalo sacked the parliament twice. There is no constitution. There is no judiciary. And then opposition was cleared. Nobody could run against him. The same thing for Emmanuel Talon. Talon, I told you what he has done. He ought to, remain in power, to hold on to power. And then you go to the Gambia. The man who took over from Yahya Jammeh, accidental president, because he wasn't supposed to be there, but because the man who was supposed the most credible opposition leader, Hussein Odabo, was in jail.
Sorry, sir. Yeah. Dr. Endurance, your mic is on, please. He's interfering. Please, Dr. Thank you. Please, you can continue, sir.
Yeah, so Hussein Odabo, the opposition leader, was in jail. What's his name? Yahya Jammeh had put him in jail. That was how Adama Barrow became a candidate. Now, agreed that he will only serve for 3 years. He claimed that when he took over, that when Senator Dabo and others came out, there was an agreement. They were not to participate in government. So he said he was no longer going to respect that 3 years. He did 5 years and has also done another 5 years. That is 10. And he is now proposing to go to another election is coming in the Gambia, I think in December. But what has happened from 2017 to this time I'm talking, the constitution that Yahya Jammeh used is what they are going to use for the election, which people thought was not, they ought to be reviewed. In fact, a review was carried out, a draft was produced, but instead of respecting this issue, part of the disagreement they have is this tenure, third term and no third term. When will it begin? That was why they have not. They used the donor fund to go and do that review. That constitution is there. They are using the old one. And then what did he do? What is now happening is that he's aligning with the, what is it called? Supporters of Yahya Jammeh, who is threatening to come back to the Gambia. So you will say, after all this and what ECOWAS has done and invested, what is there? How can you now go back? Going back is like the Israelis going back to Egypt again. So this is what the attitude and manipulations of the political leaders. So where Liberia held an election that they considered credible. The same thing is Cape Verde, and then there is which other place that you say? There's Senegal. Senegal had their own. But look at what the president, who emerged from that. That's what Professor Nabulele is saying. How can President Jomai Faye, after going through what he and Sonko went through, they are now supporting somebody who is doing, in fact, worse than what Macky Sall did, and they were against Macky Sall. Why would he be supporting Mbalo in what he's doing? Organizing a coup against himself and then allowing him to now come back to power. Who does that? So these are the, Prof, I don't know what it's a combination of what you have listed and more. And the fact that there is no sincerity and ECOWAS leaders are no longer they are no longer concerned about the citizens. It's about themselves. And back to what Emmanuel said, something can be done, beginning with one, ruling Mbalo out of the election, and then coming back to work with other people to impose sanctions that will force these people to release the result or force them out of office. Let the constitutional order return. The results are available. Let nobody deceive you that they don't have it. But how ECOWAS as a group will now be supporting one man to do what they are doing now, it's what nobody can understand. What kind of political game is there? What political shift is there? It takes, that is why I mentioned the issue of the character and the political will of those who occupy positions at the head at the ECOWAS Commission, which is the institution saddled with providing leadership and advice to the authority of heads of state.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that elaborate explanation. Prof, I don't know if you still have...
No. No.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, please, the floor is still open. We still have some time left. Please, if you have an opinion to share with respect to the topic of today's conversation, this is the time for you to air your view, and so that we all can learn together. So you have the avenue.
Okay, Michael, while they're coming up, let me also say that this is not just a situation for the blues in ECOWAS or ECOWAS officials. I think every citizen of the organization, that's why your center should be commended, the Center, for Community and Oceanic Law, for doing this. That it is our future, common future, the future of our children, and then the future of the community, that more than 400 million people that we are talking about. Let nobody say that it's not my concern. It's, how does it bother me? They are using the money of every country. The community levy they are talking about is the money that they could have used to do other things in our country that they are using to run ECOWAS. So we have a stake in it. So civil society, the media, everybody actually should be concerned about what is happening in ECOWAS, whether or not you are working there. And then also, it starts from the home, I must say, because an organization is only as strong or as weak as its constituent members. So what member states cannot give, they can bring to ECOWAS, and the ECOWAS cannot give what it does not have.
Yes.
Okay? So this, making ECOWAS strong or making it the organization that we'll all be proud of, starts with the citizens. Let the citizens do their own bit by having a government that is produced through a transparent and credible process.
Election.
Who will now represent them in ECOWAS.
Yes.
Okay? Because we can't expect ECOWAS to produce magic or AU. They are all functions, they are products of these countries. And these countries are dysfunctional. There is no way you can't get angels now to replace them. It's the same people, garbage in, garbage out. So that is the plea that I want to make. It is not that some of us who are advocating or canvassing for this, there is no extra, there is no benefit to us beyond what the ordinary citizen can get. But if we do not talk about it, if we don't speak up when evil is being committed, in fact, they say the most dangerous people in a society are those who refuse to condemn evil when they are not the people who are committing that evil, but those who are actually committing the evil act. So we have to all rise up. And so I can see some hands.
Yes, so that's why I was. Yes, so we'll start with Dr. Tony Luka Elumelu.
I can see Tony Anene.
Yes. When he's done. When Dr. Tony is done, Dr. Tony Luka is done, then we'll move to Dr. Tony Anene.
I would have preferred my senior brother, Dr. Anene, who is also very knowledgeable.
That's fine. Okay,
please,
that's fine.
Give him the floor.
Yes, please.
Me. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Tony Anene, please, you have the floor. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Tony Anene Maido. I want to begin by congratulating my brother, Paul Ejime, for excellent presentation. As Tony rightly pointed out, he has shown that in respect of ECOWAS affairs, there is an institutional memory, and I'm very proud of your presentation today. I agree completely with all that you have said. I equally agree with what my junior brother, Tony Elumelu, has equally said. It's a combination of many factors. But the main problems as follows. One, non-compliance with the ECOWAS legal framework. Non-compliance is major issue. ECOWAS is tilting more towards political integration now, because we know the political challenges that we have, and without political stability, there cannot be economic development. That will be completely ruled out. But failure to hold member states accountable for their treaty obligation is another problem. We have a situation where you have many dictatorships in the region, and some of these leaders cannot be held accountable. Nobody will even dare. The issue of tenure extension is there. We know what the protocol on democracy says, but there are many people who have done more than 3, 4, 5. We know that elections in the sub-regions are not free and fair. We saw what happened in Nigeria in 2023. We equally saw what happened in many other countries in the region. And some of these leaders, it has become impossible to remove them. And they remain in power. We don't rest. ECOWAS has become lame, cannot challenge them, cannot even put out statements challenging them. Nigeria too has a part of the problem. Nigeria is supposed to be the hegemon in the sub-region, but Nigeria has become more distracted by its own internal crisis than what is happening in the region. Nigeria is funding a large share of the bills of ECOWAS, but the voice of Nigeria is not being heard in ECOWAS affairs. I believe that the attempt that was made 2 years ago or thereabout regarding Niger, where the community threatened, the use of military force to remove the unconstitutional government in that country. But following outcries from many leaders across the sub-region, and particularly from northern Nigeria backpedal, I think that has equally weakened Nigeria's stand in respect of these issues of unconstitutional governments in the sub-region. We all heard what Jonathan said, who was the leader of the ECOWAS delegation to the election in Guinea-Bissau, that the so-called coup, was they played the first one on everyone. But it's obvious that Mbalo organized the so-called coup. So allowing him to contest, to contest in the upcoming election, if they are going to hold one, I know one is not going to be fair and fair, but it's like allowing him to have his cake and eat it to eat his cake and have it. So these are the issues. Until we begin to hold member states accountable, until ECOWAS finds a way of neutralizing the so-called dictators, neutralizing the powers, not their person, neutralizing the powers of those dictators that appear to be above the ECOWAS legal eyes, will continue to move in circles. So thank you so much for your presentation. You have done well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate your contribution. So, Dr. Tony Luka Ilumelu, you now have the floor, sir.
What will I say after the authorities have spoken? The only thing I can say is that I align myself with what my senior brothers have contributed. And the only thing I need to do is to just give a word of hope. Because I believe that all this exercise of thoughts that are not even available around the state, like this discussion, should at least go around the member states, and especially with this eloquent presentation and discourse, if there's a way to share it around member states, so that it can form recommendation when our leaders are meeting. Because it's not just having a talk show. A recommendation should also be translated into French and Portuguese so that people will know that there's hope. Because I just mentioned, I have a friend in Guinea-Bissau who kept asking me, what is ECOWAS going to do? And the same question, what are they going to do? Then in this quagmire, they're not enjoying what is happening or whatever it is. When is the summit? So if there's a way the organizers can share this particular recommendations, at least the program with member states, so that they will know that apart from the authority, apart from the commission, that people are talking about it, there's concern, so they can give hope to community citizens. Let them know that we are discussing this, and let them know that there's hope. It's not a situation like we have been seeing where somebody who has been accused of stealing chicken will want to work in the poultry, and would give hope. So I've concluded what I want to say because it's been done. I cannot say more than what the two scholars have mentioned. But for your information, Maido was the chief registrar at the community court. So what will I now say? So thank you very much for giving me a voice here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tony. We really appreciate. And for all our speakers and all our contributors, we really appreciate. We are rounding up now, but I'm going to give Mr. Paul Ejime an opportunity to just give a final touch to all we have discussed.
Yeah, Michael, thank you very much. And then let me acknowledge my two brothers too, like I mentioned. Dr. Anthony Maido worked, actually he built up the legal department of the what you have today now as the community court, serving as chief registrar for so many years. So he knows the instruments. He has hit the nail on the head that it is about mainly compliance or lack of it that is at the root of, and they know why they are not complying. Some are doing it because, many of them are doing it because of selfish interest, because they want to guard their, their territory. And then in the process, they also now protect those who are doing the same thing because they know they may be called out. If it's a case of, they call it paddy movement. That's what the heads of state are doing. But one will want the new the management that will head the commission to please see things differently, to be able to challenge, or not even challenge, call the attention of these leaders. When you, like I said, you can do so through subtle diplomacy. The president going, it's not only when you have the summit that you start raising issues. When you want to fight fire, you can go individually or as a person to a country that is about to or in the process of violating the protocol or not complying. And then talk to them at maybe at one-on-one. You say, Your Excellency, I've come. This is the reason I've come. What you are now doing or what you have done is not in line with our protocol. And if they refuse, you would have shown respect. If you now come back and the situation remains the same, you are now at liberty to issue out with the statement to say, by the way, the president of the ECOWAS Commission has visited the head of state of this to talk about the discussion and what the president of the commission told the head of state. I'm telling you that can change something. And at your level, we're not saying you start fighting them physically or whatever, but there are ways you can do that. And that way, you're afraid that they are going to sack you? Even if they do, there is life after ECOWAS. I know people are worried. How do you pay your school? All those personal things. But look at your legacy. What will the world say about you when you leave this office? And that is the other thing. Let me also emphasize this idea of the fact that the citizens need to do something. Yes, the Guinea-Bissau people, citizens are calling. But I also told them, or the ones in Togo, when all these leaders are coming, yes, they can come hard, they can kill, they can maim, but liberty or freedom is not given on a gold platter. You have to fight for it. You do not sit down in Guinea-Bissau or sit down in Togo and expect ECOWAS. ECOWAS does not have any force to go and be monitoring everybody. You are supposed, under the protocol, member states all have responsibilities. And the citizens there have a responsibility that when you are not satisfied with the way you are being governed, there are ways, civil disobedience, network, meet other people, civil society, to really make sure that you influence the policymakers. You advocate to them, whether the way you do it, but let it not be violent, by violent means. But make sure, if Guinea-Bissau people who have been coming out on the street every day, they are afraid to die. But like Fela will say, if you are not afraid to die, who do you want to die for you? So you must begin, the change you want must begin with you. So there shouldn't be this lackadaisical attitude or it's not my business. It will affect you because these leaders are taking decisions that will affect your life and that of your family, your children, and even generations to come. That is the reason we have to make it, our duty, constitutional duty, responsibility to make sure that we interrogate the way we are being governed, the policies that govern us. Are they in line with international best practice? Can things be done better? And so on and so forth. And calling our leaders to account, holding them to account. I think that is the way to go. Thank you for this opportunity. And like Tony has said, Lumelu has said, and I will also appeal to him. He is in a good position to also escalate this to other areas, even the decision makers in ECOWAS. Whether they listen or not is another matter. We have done our duty. We have done our best. We leave the rest. Posterity will judge. And then my other brother, Tony Maido, should also use his own good offices to also support the Center of Community and Oceanic Law. Let's spread the message in whatever way it can go. Well, if you send us the link of this, we will try to publicize it at best. But let's think of better ways and how to be more effective. Like Tony said, reaching across the regions, the member states. My brother talked about the fact that because of the popular decision of going to trying to send military troops to Niger. Yes, that is one of the. But you cannot, because somebody died of poison while eating food, then you now stop eating food.
Eating food.
You have to engage, adapt, because the same ECOWAS countries now we are now going to Niger to say we are the same people. So if you were the same people, why were you going to militarily invade your own people? It means that there was, they didn't think about it properly. It was wrong-headed. Thank God it didn't go through. But that should not stop ECOWAS from acting when they need to. At least when they went to the Gambia, Jammeh thought he was powerful. But when the Alpha Jet started flying across where he was staying, he gave in. So we do not need to tell these people. They are paid to do this work. Let them think from outside the box. Let them do their job. And like he's also said, Nigeria should step up and then perform as a regional hegemon, the superpower, the giant that we claim to be. Let us show it in action and in words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Paul Ejime. We really appreciate today's lecture. Once again, Mr. Paul Ejime is a global voice, a seasoned analyst, a consultant on peace, security, and governance communication. Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate. And right about now, I'm going to be handing over to the Executive Director of the Center for Community and Oceanic Law, Professor Amos Enabulele, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Mike. I want to say thank you to everyone. We are so honored to have Theo Institutional Memories with us today. So honored to have Dr. Tony Anene and to have Dr. Erumeru. These two individuals contributed, they may not know, to the idea of setting up this center. I don't know if Dr. Erumeru remembered a conversation that we had incidentally in Guinea-Bissau in 2015. I'll remind you of that after the session. That was where the thought of this center, the seed was sown for this center. And who made that conversation possible? It was Dr. Tony Anene that made that conversation possible. And also, I think it was it Cape Verde or the Gambia that we met, Mr. Paul? It was also...
Yes, it was the Gambia.
That made that possible. So they have been very instrumental to the work of this center, at least to setting up of this center, and they have been really helpful. And Mr. Paul has always been there for us. Whenever we called him, he has always come to honor us, whether in a webinar or in an in-house training. He has been very helpful. So I want to say a big thank you to you three. I want to say thank you to you, sir, and to everyone who has taken our time to be with us today. You know, we're doing what we're doing because we believe in the ECOWAS. And before I started getting involved in the ECOWAS through the court, it was just like, it was so remote from me, you know. And so that is why we are doing what we are doing in this center, so that every citizen of ECOWAS would understand what it stands to benefit in ECOWAS. When you take your passport and you travel through ECOWAS, it's ECOWAS states. It's ECOWAS that made it possible. And Dr. Imeluda is here. When there's you cross through an international border in ECOWAS, remember him, because he's one of those who worked tirelessly to see that this system attains where it is now. So I want to say a big thank you to everyone.